legislation changes where we've been able to cover uninsured losses. FEMA assistance is really geared to help get a jump start on recovery. It's not going to cover all losses in a disaster. One of the things that we've seen recently on this event is a lot of rumors. And so to combat the rumors, we've launched a web page called Common Rumors on our FEMA.gov page, and you could go there and search underneath Common Rumors. One of the ones that's been prolific is a rumor about that we're giving vouchers out. And really, FEMA doesn't provide vouchers. What we provide is funding through grants directly, electronically provided into individuals' bank accounts once they apply. We are making sure that we provide clarity to individuals. One of the other ones we've heard a lot is that we're going to cover 100% of all costs. And I think there's some confusion between when the president announced 100% of covering firefighting costs and debris. There's been some confusion. So the president authorized in his declaration the ability for us to cover 100% of the firefighting costs, whether that's reimbursement or us providing resources. But the cost and the cost for debris removal for a 180-day period. However, the cost through our individual assistance program is a direct grant to individuals, and it is limited to 2 grants of $43,600. The first one is called our Other Needs Assistance. It covers things like personal property, medical and dental, transportation, funeral costs, and other miscellaneous items. And that max is $43,600. Our other one is called housing assistance, and it covers the repair, replacement, and lodging expense reimbursement. In both those grants, it's required you go to your insurance company first if you have insurance, and only uninsured losses is what we can provide. There's also some rumors about that if you do a GoFundMe page, FEMA's going to take the money from you. There is on the rumor page some information for GoFundMe accounts and other forms of assistance you may be getting outside FEMA. The key is FEMA is not able to duplicate any assistance given to individuals or any forms of assistance. And so the way that those pages are set up, and I would stay away from using specific language that we use in our program. Also, in addition to the 2 grants I mentioned, we also can help people with rental assistance and temporary housing, which doesn't impact those 2 grants. We have staff at site at various areas throughout the community. We had people helping with applications at some of the libraries. We also have opened up 2 disaster recovery centers with the city and the county, one at UCLA Research Park West at 10850 West Pico Boulevard, and the second one at the Pasadena City College Education Center at 3035 Foothill Boulevard, Pasadena. And those 2 will open up at 1 o'clock today, and then they'll be open 7 days a week after that. I think from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Daily. And then I'm also working closely with the state of California and local partners to assess ongoing situation and determine where other support may be provided most effective. There's a number of other federal agencies, nonprofit organizations, some on the call today, that will be speaking to other programs they have, whether it be SBA and their loans or other resources. One of the goals we have is to work with the state to coordinate that and make sure that we are looking not only at the short-term needs, but the long-term recovery. And let me just clarify the hours of those recovery centers. They're from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. So again, that's a clarity, not 6 p.m., but 8 p.m. So 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. With that, I have to unfortunately run to a meeting with the mayor, but I just wanted to commit to everyone that we continue to make sure that not only are we financially supporting these fires, but we have every federal agency here to support these, and we will be here for the long term and look forward to partnering with you in the days to weeks to months to years ahead as we help LA County, LA City, and the surrounding communities recover from these fires. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob, for your time. I know you're headed out to talk with local leadership and then also go to those DRCs. Um, we're um, we're joined also by California OES, Abby Browning. Abby leads the coordination with NGOs and also the private sector through the Business Operations Center. Abby, over to you from an update from your perspective. Thanks for
Yeah,
joining the call
thank
today.
you. Thank you, Rob, for inviting us to be a part of this call. This is extremely important to bring our businesses together to understand what is happening. I'm going to give you a brief rundown of what the situation is on the ground, just be so you know what's happening, and then talk a little bit about how you can assist us and how you can help, because this is going to be quite the event. This was always my biggest nightmare, keeping me awake, is something happening in the Los Angeles basin, because not only does it affect millions of people in the actual area, but the economic implications are going to be felt around the world. And so, whatever we can do to try to get this engine back and running, we're willing to do that. As of right now, we have these two major fires still burning. The Eaton fire is 35% contained, and the Palisades fire is 17% contained. Note that damage assessment is happening. Only about 25% has occurred, but we have counted approximately 3,000 residential structures destroyed just in that 25% that has been done. Uh, Regional Minister Fenton also mentioned that we are doing search and rescue efforts as we speak, trying to identify those that we have lost. At the moment, we have 90,000 people still evacuated from those two fires. Those evacuations, from what I understand, are going to stand because we are going into another critical fire weather pattern for the next 2 days. Hopefully that'll lift tomorrow evening, Wednesday evening, but the Santa Anas are pretty strong. And so we have every preposition that you could possibly think of down in Southern California preparing for that. I know that they put out at least 20 spot fires last night, just watching for flare ups, watching for things to happen. And so we are on top of that. Also, note that we are also doing our best to prepare for the eventual rains that come. If those of you have familiarity with Southern California, this is when it rains. And so burn scars are not fun in the rain, because that is where debris flow happens. And so we are proactively doing measures for the watershed to try to protect that and prepare for what may come once the rain does start. And then finally, just so you know, we do still have 7 shelters open with about 700 people population overnight. Note the big difference between how many people were in the shelters versus how many people are evacuated. That's because this is Los Angeles. There is plenty of room for people to go and find hotels and things like that. However, we're still providing services to those people as the days go along. And so a lot of them are coming by the shelters for services and just not spending the night. So don't let those numbers fool you a bit. As Rob mentioned, my role here at Cal OES is I'm the chief of the Office of Private Sector NGO Coordination. That's a fancy way of saying external affairs. But the reason that we say it like coordination is because we do believe in the whole community approach. It is all hands on deck. We are all there, and we partner with not only our nonprofits that are essential to our work, but also the private sector and philanthropy, because it's going to take all of us to get these folks back on their feet. We have a list of vetted funds that are through Philanthropy California. I've asked the U.S. Chamber to put that information in the link. It is a link of these vetted funds. These are not the only funds. These are just the ones that we can attest to. They're legitimate and they are going to communities. What these funds do is you can donate to these funds, and then they will be distributed amongst the nonprofits and the locals on the ground. I can, if anybody is interested in that, I'm happy to talk more about that individually, about those funds. We also have a donations portal through California, and it's for businesses that want to donate goods. This is purely for corporate donations. And so if you have a bunch of mattresses that you would like to donate, we put that into the portal. The portal provides liability coverage from the state of California, and then we coordinate with the locals on the ground as to whether or not they need that assistance. We want to respect your donation, and so we don't want to take it if it's not going to get used. And so we want to make sure that we do our due diligence and find the appropriate manners in which to do that. Please note that these portals do not have our nonprofit partners on there, like the American Red Cross that you're going to hear from. They are quite active, and they are doing their thing. The American Red Cross, Salvation Army, World Central Kitchen, you name it, they're there. We would encourage donations to them as well. We just don't have them listed. These are community funds that we have listed. And then finally, I've already started talks with my colleagues at the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development. I know that we'll be working with the LA Chamber and with the LA EDC and all of the leadership down in Los Angeles on economic recovery. That's going to be huge in this area because of the two areas that were impacted, because of the infrastructure that is going to be needed replaced. And we're going to be all hands on deck. We're putting in all efforts that we can. Governor Newsom is a small business owner himself, and so he is quite aware of what these disruptions can do. And so we're more than happy to try to come up with creative ways to try to assist them. And then finally, the thing that I did want to mention, if you're looking for specific needs, apart from the folks that I talked about that did lose their homes, unfortunately, we did lose a handful of schools. That is a huge concern for all of us because disruption to the children is not something that we want to let happen. So we are working hard. I just facilitated a donation of computers to replace a lot of the Chromebooks that they lost at the schools. We're going to be doing different locations for these schools that were done. A new executive order is coming out today about schools. And so just keep that in mind that over the next few months, we're going to be doing things. I have, you can always reach out to me. I am one person, but I'm happy to take any kind of call or information. But we do have a team, and it's a businessop@caloes.ca.gov. And I will put that email in the chat if you want to get on our list. So thank you.
Hey, thanks a lot, Abby, and I know that with Mr. Fenton's briefing and also Abby's briefing, you probably have some questions. We are keeping track of all the questions, so don't wait until we have the Q&A portion in a few minutes. Just go ahead and submit your question, and then we'll work through that queue as we have it. We're joined also by Maria Salinas. She's the president and CEO of the Los Angeles Area Chamber of Commerce. So the chamber advocates for many different things related to what the business community's objectives are. And I think as Abby was just recounting, maybe some of the next steps, the chamber is definitely going to be involved in, and Maria's going to be leading that effort. So Maria, over to you, and thank you again for joining the call today.
Great. Thank you very much for the invitation, and good morning or good afternoon to everyone here. I am Maria Salinas. I am President and CEO of the LA Area Chamber of Commerce. We're a regional chamber that not only covers LA County, but Ventura, Orange, San Bernardino, and Riverside counties as well. We have our own foundation at the chamber that also supports very similar work to what the U.S. Chamber Foundation works on. But let me start by sharing how grateful I am for this call. Our community is in a world of hurt. I live in Pasadena. My community is the Pasadena-Altadena area. And the Eaton Fire that was described is a place here in the community visited by many for hiking trails. It's where my boys did their Eagle Project. And to see the devastation just, a mile from my home and what my neighbors and friends are experiencing, I know you all get to see the pictures of structures that are in ruin, but the human toll is overwhelming. I can tell you that I at least have a good 20 close family friends that have lost their homes. Their stories of what they share, of how they're impacted in their jobs, in their roles. Um, some had small businesses that they were running from their homes, and being the entrepreneurial and creative individuals that are within my little circle of friends, it really is heartbreaking. So this call here today to share with you some of the work that we're doing on the ground, some of the observations that we had, I am truly grateful for that. The outpouring of support to Los Angeles through the LA Area Chamber, from near, statewide, out of the country, from across the country, has just been heartwarming to us. These pictures that I mentioned that they capture one side of the story, the side of the story that has to do with those structures. But it's the other side of that story that has to do with the families and the people impacted, that are of greatest concerns to us. We know that the business landscape here in Los Angeles, about 93% in LA County of our businesses have less than 20 employees. So we know that we're heavy into the small business space, and the Chamber has responded to that community over the years through much of the small business work that we do. Our own membership is about 68% small businesses. And I love the fact that the Chamber is a place where they feel welcomed and they feel that it's a community for them. We have been serving small businesses for a very long time. And over the last couple of years, we've adjusted our work so that we make sure that the technical assistance is there for even things like the procurement opportunities that are coming related to the Olympics. So our heart of the Chamber, I would say, is really centered on a lot of our small business work. We do that through our foundation. So today, when we see so much devastation in many of the main streets, our communities in Los Angeles, when you hear about the Malibu and Pacific Palisades and Pasadena, Altadena, all of those areas have countless neighborhoods that have their own main street. And when you see those structures and those homes that are lost, it's also the small businesses. It's the shops, the restaurants. Many of them have their local bar and nightlife. And it's just devastating to know that that has happened here in Los Angeles. I've had a number of those small businesses reach out and just share that they have lost everything. Companies that service homes, my pest control company, just to give you an example, they lost their home, they lost their small business, and they're just trying to find out where they can operate. And they were so lovely to send a note to all their clients to say, we will get back on our feet and be back with you. So this is where I believe the Chamber has the strength and the wherewithal to rally a community and to galvanize the business community in support for Los Angeles and what is happening across this region. Our organization quickly mobilized both internally and externally, making sure that our staff and our team was going to be available and ready to respond to much of the communications that we know would be happening, whether it was through SBA or FEMA, and we knew that was information that needed to get out into Los Angeles. We've been working with our board and many of the member companies that we have to organize their support and the donations, resources that they might have that can be quickly put into place here in Los Angeles. We activated a coalition that we started during the pandemic called Together for LA. That coalition was much about coordinating communication response on just finding out what is happening to our small businesses and how can we be coordinated between ourselves, the Chamber, the Los Angeles Economic Development Corporation, as well as Los Angeles County and Los Angeles City, and others as well. Los Angeles County, as you know, is coordinating a lot of the federal and state response. So this way we're not all being duplicative. We've definitely been on update calls with the mayor and the governor's office. We've checked in with all our major infrastructures, the ports, the airport, Department of Water and Power, and Metro, and have been helping them in some of their communications that you need. In terms of the Port of Los Angeles and the Port of Long Beach, I am not aware at this time of any thoughts around disruption. I know that that's always key because they are a major artery for the rest of the country. We had immediate engagement with the SBA administrator, Isabel Guzman. She came out to the chamber on Friday to walk us through many of the things that will be put in place because of the major disaster declaration that happened and was referenced earlier. From a small business support perspective, I believe the LA Chamber is well positioned and best positioned to help support this community. We have long-standing relationships throughout the region. We have a partner network that includes smaller chambers, business organizations, and other community groups that serve small businesses. These are strong relationships and authentic relationships that include our ethnic chambers and much of the communities in many of these impacted areas. We have been in touch with some of the local chambers, and one of the things you should know is that many of those local chambers have either volunteer chamber CEOs or they're a one-person operation. And we at the LA Chamber, we're a team of 34, we're fully activated on this crisis, and it is our goal to help support them as they see this situation unfold. In speaking with them, I can tell you that some of the things that are needed, even when you think about Malibu and the Palisades, people not only lost their homes, but many of them lost their mode of transportation. There were many cars that were in the way of the fire, and they were just left with belongings behind. So that I thought that that was something that was very interesting that was brought up in terms of how the needs from individual families to have transportation. Legal assistance, temporary office space, support around communication resources. Many of these small businesses are trying to reach out either to their customers, their clients, or even their own workforce, and it's very challenging for them. Corporate housing, I have talked to some of our own members that keep an inventory of corporate housing and are looking at ways in which they can make that available to some of the families that are displaced. It's not only families that lost their homes, it's also families that are not being allowed back into those evacuation areas because it's not safe. The power's not back on, the gas lines or electricity is not back on here. For me here in Pasadena, I am hosting a family here and actually have a little bit of a safe haven here for those that are displaced. To the extent that anyone has any vendors, suppliers that might be in the area, I think checking in with them would be an important thing to do. For the chamber, we are definitely doubling down on our small business work. We do a lot of technical assistance where we're adjusting to ensure that it is focused on disaster recovery. We have many businesses that are reaching out and looking to take advantage of that. We're looking to step into these impacted areas and really help the local chambers to ensure that they can provide the resources to their community. Probably the biggest thing that we did with the support of the U.S. Chamber Foundation, a big debt of gratitude to them, was to stand up our own small business disaster relief fund. We will be launching that publicly tomorrow. I'm pleased that Bank of America has a gift of $500,000 to us to get us going, along with Amazon supporting us with a $250,000 gift. That is going to be something that's going to be huge for us. We are committed to helping support this community. We are on the ground with local partners. We are engaging the partner network that we already have to make sure that we can provide the resources and the information that they need. We believe that the LA Chamber has an infrastructure in place and has the right building blocks to create recovery, to bring support, and that's what we aim to do with our own resources. That's why for us, the Small Business Disaster Relief Fund is so important. I was so pleased in working with the U.S. Chamber Foundation to just learn of their expertise, to the connections that have been made for us. We're in this for the long haul. We know this is going to be a huge effort. On top of that, we aim to do this quickly. You all know that we have global sporting events happening here in Los Angeles with the World Cup and the Olympics. So there's definitely a large commitment for collaboration to get us all back on our feet. I want to thank you very much for having me here.
And thanks for sharing that perspective, and hopefully we can get some questions in a few moments. It's also often been said that emergency management and disaster management and disasters, both preparing for them as well as navigating them, really you need partners and partnerships to make that happen. So we've heard that with Maria, but I'm going to turn it over to Mark Smith, who's the Executive Director for Community Engagement and Partnerships at the American Red Cross. And so, Mark, I'll turn it over to you as we're winding down the time here.
Sure. Thanks, Rob. And I'll be very, very brief, as I think we've heard a lot of detail, not only from our federal partners, but also corporate partners as well. And Maria, thank you for your personal stories there and engagement. I think it really does help and bring value for folks to hear firsthand accounts. And so I won't provide that level of detail, but I'll just speak globally. I think the one piece or message that I would encourage everybody who's on this line to remember is that response activities are a sprint and recovery activities are a long distance race. So while we're all acutely focused on what's happening today right in front of us, I think we also need to remember this is going to be a journey and a process, not just for individuals and families, but entire communities, and also for corporate entities and businesses. So please remain engaged, not just today, this week, next month, but beyond, as the needs will continue to grow. So I'll kind of just speak globally around what we're doing. And I think it was Abby who started by saying, this is what keeps me up at night. And, for all of us that are emergency responders, the complexity of an emergency activity within an urban environment is one that does keep us all up. And while we train regularly for this and we anticipate it, it's not until you actually are walking through an emergency response in an urban area that you really get a sense of, is what we have planned for, can we meet the need? The short answer is yes. The short answer is that while there are always emerging needs, we are meeting the immediate needs as they present and looking to partner at both the state, federal, and local level, not only with government partners, but also with community partners, which is an area in which I work very, very closely with. But just to give you, an idea between the Red Cross and some of our partners, we do have about 700 folks that are in shelters, in 7 different shelters, and just a little flavor on that, right? Just a little bit more. That also includes 60 dogs, 10 cats, and 2 small animals. That means that, we always talk about everyone is welcome, including you and your pets. So I think that's an important piece that we're trying to not only meet, the basic human needs, but also treat folks with dignity and respect, and encourage folks to enter our shelters. One piece that I think is important that speaks to the gravity of the situation is that we have also, the American Red Cross, received over 400 requests for reunification. And what that really means is there are folks who are desperately seeking loved ones and families. We are running down those communications through our networks and through our local LA region and their volunteers to make sure that folks are able to either, we all want to be able to provide the best news, the best outcome, but also in the event when we're not able to provide that best outcome, we want to be able to close the loop of information for folks who are still looking for loved ones. In addition to that, I kind of did touch briefly on how we're deploying or how we're working with state, federal, and local. We also have the American Red Cross has folks that work are stationed in all emergency operation centers, whether at all those levels, but also we deploy or send in our regional and chapter leadership to work closely with elected officials. One of the things that we want to do is be a conduit of information and also be responsive to the needs of elected officials and their constituents. So, no better way to do that than have that face-to-face contact. And our elected official network, as we call it, is as activated and working very closely throughout the region. So that's a piece that's very helpful in terms of just, again, condensing the information loop. From a short-term, long-term needs piece, let me just touch on this just a little bit. Our program will basically it's in 4 major buckets, right? We're currently focused on supporting congregate sheltering and the needs around that. That, of course, includes feeding within the shelters, either directly by Red Cross or with partners like World Central Kitchen, the Salvation Army, and many others, including local vendors. Then there's a program that we have around shelter resident transition. And what that really means is it's an understanding that we all know that there's a shortage of housing stock on a good day. So once these types of disasters, and 3,000 structures have been talked about, just 25% of the assessment, we know that number is going to go significantly higher. So now that housing stock has been eliminated. Right. So what do we do next? How do we help folks who are either in Red Cross or partner shelters or have been supported by local church groups find a sustainable living environment? So we have a program there that we're launching as well that will not only work with Red Cross clients, but also folks who, other organizations who may be supporting individuals, again, church groups, United Way, others who are supporting others. We will work and support those through our what we call SRT, our Shelter Resident Transition Program. In addition, bucket 3 is around immediate financial assistance. Regional Administrator Fenton talked about the resources of the federal government. The American Red Cross also wants to partner with and provide direct financial assistance, not in a duplicative manner, but running alongside our federal partners to ensure that needs are met, financial needs are met of all those that are eligible and impacted. Finally, we have what we call community-based operations, and that really is around supporting activities in the community, whether it's doing community feeding. We have, if you've been to a response activity, you'll have seen the Red Cross emergency response vehicles. Those vehicles will be out in all communities when the clear is given to provide basic needs, whether it's feeding, emergency supplies, and others right there in the community. So that's a top level look at what we're doing. Happy to get into any additional details when it comes down to the question and answer period, but I know we're running short on time, so I just wanted to kind of hit these high marks real quickly.
Hey, thanks a lot, Mark. Really appreciate that. And as we're working our way through some of the questions, looking at the queue now, I think I'll just start with this. I think one of the first questions is really around how to grapple with the scope and scale of how many people have actually been impacted. So we heard from Bob Fenton that 40,000 applications had already been received. Just looking at the CAL FIRE reports, that there are more than 12,000 structures that have been damaged. And then also just looking at generally across LA County, you've got roughly 1.3, 1.5 million small businesses, right, that are operating every single day for both, all Red Cross, Cal OES, and then also for Maria at the Chamber. How are you starting to develop an understanding of potentially how great the need is, and also, how to channel support to those that are in need as well? I mean, Mark, I think, looking at shelter numbers, that's not a complete picture of how many people are potentially, needing some form of assistance.
Yeah, I would agree with you 100%, Rob. And in fact, I would say that the shelter picture is an underrepresentation of the need. The fact that we are projecting again into the thousands in terms of our financial assistance, as well as those who are, and tens of thousands who are currently impacted. We're grateful that there's been an outpouring of support into LA County and surrounding counties impacted, but also that neighbors are helping neighbors so aggressively. So what we're seeing really is an anticipation that this process we haven't seen our peak yet. What we think is that folks who are in, the 700 who are in shelter today, there are thousands others who like Maria said, she's hosting a family, but we also know that that cannot be a permanent solution, right? So one of the things that we want to do is be able to stand by the ready as housing needs emerge and folks need to find their own housing to be able to support that. I don't, if you were to ask Mark Smith what this number looks like, I think our data folks would say that we're probably anticipating somewhere in the tens of thousands, 20,000, 30,000 folks who will be without housing as a result of this. One of the things that we also know is that there are many multi-generational families. We want to be able to be supportive of that as well. So I would just encourage folks, yes, if you heard me say 700 or anybody else say 700 people in shelters, and you say, wow, that's a really small number. The Red Cross can shelter 100,000 people overnight. That is true. But this event at this point is not, the shelter number is not indicative of the need.
And then
Yeah.
I would like to add that Administrator Fenton mentioned that we've already had over 40,000 applications to the FEMA system. That the DRCs, the disaster recovery centers, are soft opening today. So that is just online. That is just people applying. And as many of you know, not everybody wants to apply to FEMA, and not everybody can apply to FEMA. And so there's that as well. So we have a population that that are not as accepting of the government that we want to work with and we want to take care of. And so we're looking at as Mark said, tens of thousands. I do not know about the housing situation, but we do know that it is already an issue in LA County. And so now losing this many houses and adding to that, it's going to be a long, hard road, and we're preparing for years to come working on this recovery effort.
Yeah, and just to jump in here from a small business perspective, we are working with the county, who I know is taking the lead and trying to pull some of that information together in terms of how many small businesses were actually impacted. I don't know that that's going to happen, or we're going to know that in the immediate. In working with the local chambers, I can tell you that I heard from the chamber in the Pacific Palisades, Malibu area, that they're going door to door, or what was once a door to door, and doing their own inventory. The Altadena Chamber, put out a notice wanting their members to check in. I think that's the network we'll be working with, and that we want to help support, and then just, have the county numbers to then back us up. But I think it's very early still.
And to Mark's point, and reflecting on some of the questions that I'm looking at in the chat too, it seems that in terms of how to channel appropriately, right? So donations, it seems like but there's in kind, and then there's also financial, right? So on the donations front, and just to be clear, donations financially, Mark, if someone texts or they want to submit something to the Red Cross, do you recommend that they do that to the local chapter in LA, or should they go through national? Is there really any difference? Can you help us with that, please?
Great question. Really no difference. I mean, I think that if there's an affinity with the LA for LA small businesses or LA businesses to support the LA region of the American Red Cross, that all of these funds are going to go to supporting these fires and the survivors of these fires. So whether it's handled administratively locally or nationally, we're all one Red Cross. So no challenge there. On that in-kind piece as well, I would say that one of the in-kind works at sort of a couple different levels. There's in-kind from corporate sponsors and from corporate entities that we have a unit within our development office that's able to process those, and the things that are offered to the American Red Cross that fit into our service delivery plan, we of course accept those and utilize them. One of the key elements I'll also say, though, is the items that are not within our service delivery plan. We then work, and this is what my unit really does around partnerships. We work closely with local partners. So one of the things we're able to do is local organizations who may not have access to some of these resources to then gain access. And that's not, we basically are not the go-between. We connect local organization X with company Y, who has a donation, and say, have at it, So I think that's a piece that we offer almost as a free service for the items that we can't use. We all know, though, that financial contributions are preferred just because of a very fluid environment, and to allow either the American Red Cross or any other organization to move resources as quickly as possible. That's the best way to do it. Thanks, Rob.
And thank you. And then also, Abby, I think Mark also referenced this, and I know I've seen it in the media as well, just a neighbor helping neighbor, and people are surging in to help, which is really helpful, I think, from a short-term localized kind of response, but more strategically long-term, warehouse space, and then spontaneous deployments of either volunteers or spontaneous, donations. You've set up that donations portal for a reason, right? So can you just maybe really expound upon that just a little bit too, because we've had a couple of questions in the chat about donations.
Absolutely, and it's pretty much what Mark just said, what they do. We take in the offer and then we shop it around to the locals, not just the county and the city governments, but the local nonprofits. We're connected in with INLA, which is the Emergency Network of Los Angeles, which is the VOAD for Los Angeles County, as well as many of the nonprofits that are doing their thing down there. We have donations coordinators that have already been deployed from the state to help the county adjudicate those offers that come in. But cash is king, cash is best. Not only do we like cash donations because it makes it cleaner, it makes it easier, but it allows the individuals, when they receive those cash donations, then to go back and contribute to the local economy. I would rather buy my own towels than receive a donation of towels, and me buying my towels contributes to the local store down the street, that, and it keeps the economic engine moving. And so that's what we really, really strongly do. But we do understand that you do have product, and you're willing to give it, and we are willing to take it. Through that donations portal, we have a bunch of questions about like transportation, delivery, do you have storage, do you not have storage, and then if there are odd things, like for example warehouses, we have several offers of warehouses in the Los Angeles area. But if you have one that you would like to offer up to help us with our donations management, you can email me directly and we can figure that out. I'm more than happy to work with you, or pass you to one of my higher level team members that can handle that coordination.
Hey,
And
thanks. Go
volunteer
ahead.
wise, there is a link on that page for volunteers that goes to our California volunteers associated with Los Angeles, and we're taking in volunteer opportunities. That will become a bigger thing as the recovery moves on. Right now, it is still too dangerous to send anyone in, and so the volunteers are on the outskirts. But we're going to be rebuilding houses. We're going to be rebuilding parks. We're going to be rebuilding lots of things, and so there'll be opportunities for volunteers for years to come.
Thanks, Abby. As we are, I think, winding down the Q&A piece, I guess I would just ask, and so many different analogies, and you can never really put the words together to articulate it effectively. But this is not it's almost a sprint and a marathon at the same time, I think, to kind of be inspired by what Mark was sharing, because there's an active firefighting effort, but yet you have recovery programs like the DRCs are doing a light opening today. How are you going to manage, and how can this group be helpful? I mean, we have over 500 people that have registered for this call today. How can we be helpful in not only meeting the emerging needs and anticipating needs, but what are really the needs now? And how can we be helpful over the long term? And by long term, I'm thinking next week, because we know by public interviews with the state fire marshal that firefighting will still be happening next week at this time. So how can we be helpful over the next week, and maybe even over the next month, is probably the last question I'd ask before we wrap up this call today.
Great question, Rob. I think there's a couple pieces on that. And Abby, thank you for raising the piece around volunteerism. I think as we, our operations continue to unfold, there is the opportunity, especially once we make a quick pivot into our community operations, which are where we really have more and more folks in the field. Would love to have folks through redcross.org can register to be Red Cross volunteers. And we can also connect folks with other organizations that are looking for volunteers as well, part of this whole community effort. So thing one, of course, is volunteerism as that opens up. And if you have folks that are local, and also, through our network, I know Mark knows that many of our corporate partners will have their teams deploy as a team into operations as well. And we're starting to work on that as well with many of the folks that support you guys who have sort of trained personnel and ready to go. We'll do that as soon as it's safe. But ultimately, the piece that I think we cannot lose sight of is how we support housing needs. Housing needs, as everyone has said, are already strained in every community in this country, and now will be further depleted. So the long-term engagement around how we help folks move into sustainable housing, because we know they're going to, as we get further from the disaster, there will be folks who are not able to identify sustainable housing, and how do we help them? How do we support them through this process? Is one that's going to be very paramount and pinnacle to the American Red Cross.
Do you want me to?
I think
Jump
you're
in,
on
or-
mute.
Sorry, I was on mute. I've only been doing this for 3 years. Maria, did you have anything that you'd like to add to that? I'm sorry.
You know what I would add, I think, you know, to the extent there are organizations that we might not be aware of that we should be collaborating with. And I love your response, Mark, about the Red Cross, because the Red Cross, we're here locally in Los Angeles, is very actively engaged with us. But if there's, because we complement each other in terms of the needs that we come across, there's things that we can do, but there are things that our partners can do. So to the extent there are networks that we might not be aware of, that, you know, we should have in on our radar. I definitely think that that would be something that would be helpful. Abby, I know that we're going to be on a call later on this afternoon, and just know that there's a lot of collaboration going on already.
Yeah, and just to round it out, I saw someone in the chat asked about donations for first responders. We do have a policy in the state. Our first responders, their top priority are the survivors. And so we prefer everything to go to survivors if possible. We want them to have anything that is coming our way. We try our very best to take care of our first responders so then they can take care of those people that need them the most. Having said that, send it to me in an email, and I can discuss and adjudicate that with you. Supporting over the next week. This may go without saying, but I'm going to say it again. Support your employees. You have employees in these areas. And so I have seen so many disasters where I'm so impressed with some of these companies and how they stand up and have the backs and support of their employees as they move through. One of the things we were talking this morning is the state of California employees that are impacted by this. What are we going to do as an employer to support them? Because they have to deal with a lot of things that they've never thought they had to deal with. And so that is something huge, because if you're supporting your employees, then that kind of takes a little bit of pressure off of us. But we're in this for the long haul, and fires are going to continue, and then we're going to move into floods. And so it's just a constant sprint / marathon. And so happy to have any support that we can have.
Well, I want to thank all of you for joining the call today. Particularly your perspective, you know, as you're navigating all these different requirements, and, you know, particularly Maria, and what you recounted of, you know, you're not only contributing to the response, but you're also, you know, a survivor as well. And you're not the only person. And, you know, for everyone on this call, you know, we all have a role to play. You know, there's a critical role before, during, and after disaster. We know this is going to be a prolonged both response and a prolonged recovery, rebuild, and reconstruction process with resilience in mind. So there's going to be different opportunities for everybody to, I think, really leverage, you know, your capacity, your network, and also your capabilities. So as the next 24 hours unfolds and the winds continue to, I think, make firefighting very difficult, you know, for the people that have been impacted, and for the companies, both large, medium, and small, that have employees. There's a real opportunity, whether to write a check, whether it's to donate an in-kind service, or it's just really assess and see where you can be helpful over the rebuild process. The links and the resources that were shared throughout this call, I know that we put into the chat. That will be distributed in a readout, posted online and distributed after this call is complete, likely tomorrow morning. If you need anything from anyone, just email us at the Chamber Foundation at resilience@uschamber.com, and we'll certainly channel that back to any of the speakers. But also, I think the resources and the channels for coordination are pretty clear. So please take advantage of those. Really, at the end of the day, we can make a significant impact. This is not an ordinary disaster, and it really is going to require an extraordinary effort across the nation and across sectors. So thanks again for joining today, and we'll be sure to let you know when we plan another coordination call. Thank you.
Thank you.